What makes a good wrestler great? Is it mastering the ring, dragging classics out of rookies and legends alike? Or is it the mic, turning words into weapons, promos into poetry, whether face or heel, truth or lie? Maybe it's the character work, the power to wear 1,000 faces, to tell stories that hit you right in the gut, to evolve, vanish, and return sharper than ever. Or is it something even rarer, surviving eras, thriving through shifting tides, etching your name into time, and still standing tall when others fade into memory? Only a rare few ever master it all. Macho Man Randy Savage, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Chris Jericho, the Dead Man, the Heartbreak Kid, masters of every craft, carved into legend. But none of them still walk that line today. Except one, still fighting, still spitting venom, still evolving, still unshaken, still at top of his game.
Tell me when I'm telling lies.
Even though the throne was never made for men like him, he wasn't born into greatness. He built it, brick by bitter brick, through torn ligaments, through betrayals, through nights drowned in silence. While others posed for posters, he wrestled through painkillers. While part-timers headlined, he bled in half-empty arenas that history forgot. He carried the company through its coldest winters and was met with shrugs. He broke records no one recalls, tore muscles that never healed, sacrificed friendships, trust, his own body, and still, they crowned someone else. And somewhere between the cheers meant for others, and the ice melting down his spine, he saw the truth. Martyrs don't wear crowns, but monsters do. The crown was always reserved for the bloodlines, handed to the chosen, guarded by suits and fake smiles. But what happens when the architect of their empire decides to burn it all down? He took the knife and stabbed their king. He stopped asking for the spotlight and became the fire. He shook hands with devils, turned laughter into mockery, turned hate into art. If they wouldn't praise him as their savior, they'd remember him as their reckoning. This is the story of the man who built the throne, then set it ablaze, the man who committed the ultimate sin of betrayal, and now, in the fire of redemption, he's ready to burn it all down. The man they never respected, but will now fear. This is the story of a visionary, a revolutionary. This is the story of Seth freaking Rollins. Seth Rollins didn't arrive in WWE wielding a sword. He came as a shield. November 18th, 2012. Survivor Series. CM Punk was defending his title against John Cena and Ryback, and just when Ryback's victory felt inevitable, 3 shadows in black swarmed the ring like wolves with orders to kill. They mauled Ryback, powerbombed him through the announce table, and introduced themselves to the world. The Shield had arrived, and from that moment on, the landscape of WWE shifted forever. Week after week, night after night, they came, they saw, they conquered, and they left wreckage behind. Cena, Orton, Bryan, Undertaker, nobody was untouchable. Not legends, not management, not even the ones who created them. When their music hit, the air changed. You knew something real was about to go down. WWE had seen factions before, but nothing like this. This was the PG era. Characters were cartoonish. Promos were sanitized, segments were scripted into safety, but the Shield, they arrived as a purge. They felt dangerous, real, uncontrolled. Their violence didn't feel rehearsed, it felt necessary. Their promos weren't glossy, they were confessions before war. Their gear wasn't flashy, it was armor. They didn't walk the ramp, no lights, no pyro. Just 3 men rising from the crowd, like assassins sent to end the lie. They weren't here to be superstars. They were here to deliver justice by any means necessary. Each member brought something essential. Seth Rollins was the mind, the architect, cold, calculated, a master technician who made chaos look deliberate. Dean Ambrose was the storm, raw, unhinged, the kind of man who'd throw himself into fire just to watch it burn. Roman Reigns was the power, the silent executioner, the guillotine. When he struck, it was final. Individually, they weren't ready, not polished enough to stand alone with the greats, but they never fought alone. They moved like one body, fought in perfect unison. They didn't compete, they overwhelmed, outnumbering, suffocating, dismantling, like a war machine that never ran out of fuel. But what made them unforgettable wasn't just the dominance, it was the bond.
We pull out secret weapons. Nobody's ever seen the double triple powerbomb, baby.
I thought we were gonna call it the triple double.
The regular one is a triple powerbomb.
Like a Big Mac.
We put 2 people up. It's a double triple powerbomb.
They weren't three men thrown together. They were brothers. You could see it in how they celebrated each other's wins, how they panicked when one was hurt, how they carried each other after matches. It didn't feel scripted because it wasn't. It was real. Anyone who knows wrestling knows the truth. WWE's locker room isn't a family. It's a battlefield, a constant war for position, for airtime, for survival. It's jealousy, politics, pressure, and when three unknowns walked in and got handed the podium others had clawed for, it didn't sit right. Backstage, the hate came fast. So did the games. John Moxley, Ambrose, wrote about it in his autobiography. Seth told me another story once about some guys who obviously didn't like him, trying to get him to drink with them. Not in a friendly, let's have a beer way, but in a we think you're cocky, so we're going to pressure you into shots kind of way. Seth's not a drinker. My freaking blood boiled. That's my boy. This kind of crap brought us together. On TV, they were three outsiders taking on the machine. Off camera, it was the same story. They shared rides, shared motel rooms, shared floors and beds, practiced spots, wrote promos, rehearsed the future. Their entire livelihood depended on making the Shield work. And you don't go through that without building something real, something that survives time, fame, and separation. Even now, years after the split, when they share a moment on screen, that connection bleeds through, and the fans feel it, because it's not nostalgia, it's truth.
I love Roman Reigns, but I don't like Roman Reigns.
For 18 months, the Shield ran through the roster, turned giants to dust, stacked titles, forged a legacy that will never be forgotten. But then, the cracks started to show, and the architect had already seen the foundation crumbling. There are moments in wrestling history where people remember exactly where they were, and every single detail feels etched in time. This was one of those moments. All three men stood in the ring, just finished fighting another war, when Triple H arrived, flanked by Randy Orton, with a plan B. A Shield that had been unbreakable from the outside, cracked from within. Seth Rollins is an ambitious man. He lived this war, fought it side by side with his brothers. They were forged in the same fire, but Seth wasn't built to share the spotlight. He was made to dance alone in the chaos. So he took the sword and drove it into the backs of his brothers. Then he kept swinging until there was nothing left. And just like that, the Shield shattered. All three men went their separate ways, each forging their own legacy. But the echoes of that chair shot, they never stopped ringing. Not then, not now, not ever. Seth Rollins was once part of something sacred, a brotherhood that bled beyond the ring, a shield against injustice, a cause, not a character. But he broke that shield. He shattered that bond and became the very thing he once swore to destroy. He sold his soul to men in suits, stabbed his brothers in the back, and handed the blade to the machine. In return, he was promised the world. He climbed the ladder. He claimed the money in the bank. Brock Lesnar was the only champion at the time, but he wasn't around. He held the title hostage, showing up only when it suited him. Seth Rollins had the briefcase, and with it, 4 or 5 chances to cash in, if Brock allowed it. Then came the Royal Rumble. Seth made a quiet request: insert me into the match. And after putting on a workhorse performance in a triple threat against Cena and Lesnar, for all his dominance, saw something in Rollins that night. He gave him the nod. Meanwhile, Roman Reigns won the Rumble. The reaction? Boos. Deafening. Not even the bald fraud's endorsement could save him from the crowd's rejection. Outside the storylines, Seth has always expressed how much he loves his Shield brothers. But if there's one thing he loves more, it's the business, and he would go to any length to protect it. So he pitched the unthinkable: cash in during the WrestleMania main event, Roman versus Lesnar. Insert himself into the match no one wanted, and save it. But first, he went out that same night and delivered an instant classic with Randy Orton. The mid-air RKO into the stomp, heard around the world. After that loss, he walked backstage, and that's when he was told. WrestleMania 31, the heist of the century. He cashed in, stomped the future, pinned the past, and walked out WWE champion. But the crown came with a price. Before the betrayal, before the briefcase, before the titles, there was just Colby Lopez, a kid from small-town Iowa chasing a dream too big for his zip code. At 14, he laced up boots for the first time, built a ring out of plywood and trampolines, sold 100 people a reason to believe. His heroes were Shawn Michaels and AJ Styles. He didn't want to be famous. He wanted to be great. Under the name Tyler Black, he hit the indie circuit like a storm. High-flying hybrid style, no safety net, no backup plan. He wanted to train under the man he idolizes, CM Punk. Scraped together what he could, asked for help. Punk said no. That rejection stayed with him. It festered. It fueled him. Every locker room he walked into, every bone he broke, every night he slept on floors. That fire never dimmed. In ROH, he rose fast, tore through the roster, became world champion. TNA came calling. He turned them down. He was waiting for something bigger. When WWE finally knocked, he answered. It was time for Colby Lopez to become Seth Rollins. But the lights weren't bright. The stage wasn't grand. He found himself in a warehouse in Tampa. FCW, no crowds, no cameras, just sweat, silence, and broken dreams. From world champion to rookie. Surrounded by ex-football players who didn't even know how to lock up. It felt like punishment. It felt like regression. He almost cracked. Until Dusty saw something in the defiant kid with too much fire and too little filter. Seth, just be yourself, baby, the dream would say. And Rollins took it to heart, though perhaps too much at times.
We cultivated like a different side of my personality that I didn't know that I had.
But even then, he was hard to handle, too confident, too loud, too stubborn. He clashed with coaches. Terry Taylor hated him. Triple H nearly fired him. You're not special, you're replaceable. That was the warning Seth had to choose. Protect his pride or protect his dream. He chose the dream. Joey Mercury reminded him, play the game without losing who you are. So Rollins adapted. He bit his tongue. He waited his turn. And when FCW evolved into NXT, he rose with it. He didn't just succeed, he became the first ever NXT Champion. From there, he never looked back. Years later, he stood at the top, WWE Champion, face of the company, living proof that sacrifice could buy greatness. But greatness always collects its debt. His body was running on borrowed time, and the crash came without warning. A house show, a routine match, one misstep, and his knee exploded. Torn ACL, torn MCL, torn meniscus. Everything ripped in a second. His 221-day reign ended in silence. No match, no loss, just a title vacated and a dream stolen. WrestleMania 32 was supposed to be his moment, his coronation. Instead, he watched from the sidelines, forgotten, furious, broken. I felt like I let everyone down, he said. The fans, Vince, himself. But deep down he knew, he hadn't just paid for the crown, he bled for it. He came back with more than a healed knee. He came back with fire. This could have been the moment to crown him the company's top babyface, the workhorse turned warrior. But WWE never saw him at that level. Not like they saw Roman, not like they saw Cena. So they turned him heel, had him attack Roman on return, gave him edge, gave him venom, but never the throne. He pinned Roman Reigns clean at Money in the Bank, the Golden Boy, mid-push, flat on the mat. But before the belt could even feel like his, Dean Ambrose cashed in. All three Shield brothers touched the title that night. Only one ended it empty-handed. That's the story of Seth Rollins. He creates the moments. Others get the monuments. Then came the draft. A reset. A shift to Raw. He fought Finn Balor to crown the inaugural Universal Champion. Another chance at history. Another near miss. Balor won. Balor got injured. And WWE pivoted, not with vision, but desperation. Seth Rollins became the last resort to carry a dying product. Then the knife came again. Triple H, the mentor, the father figure, the man who pulled him out of obscurity, drove a pedigree into his back. But Seth kept swinging. WrestleMania 33, he limped into battle and beat the King, called himself the Kingslayer. The victory felt cold, like revenge wasn't enough, so he turned face, teamed with Ambrose again, won tag gold, built bridges from ashes, then carried the show when Ambrose went down, then carried it again when Roman stepped away. No rest, no retreat, just Seth, bleeding, burning, existing so the show could breathe. They handed him the Intercontinental title, a belt that had rusted in irrelevance. He polished it with blood, main evented with it, made it matter, gave Raw a heartbeat when it had none. Then came the Royal Rumble. He survived, endured, won. And when he had the world in his hands, he didn't duck the danger. He picked Brock Lesnar. WrestleMania 35. He didn't get to close the show. He opened it and slayed the beast. 3 stomps, 1 pinfall, Universal Champion, again, but still not the main event. Roman dominated the headlines. Becky, Charlotte, and Ronda closed the show. And Seth, he smiled through clenched teeth. But the wound opened wide. He beat Brock again at SummerSlam, carried the title through the storm, but somewhere along the way, the cracks started to show. The cheers turned. The crowd that once sang his name started to boo, not because he stopped being great, but because the bitterness began to bleed through the curtain. He ran his mouth too much, took unnecessary shots at AEW, tried to play company man when the company didn't treat him like their man. He picked fights online, traded jabs with respected names like Will Ospreay, bragged about bank accounts, got defensive when no one asked him to be. He did everything a face of the company shouldn't, and the fans, they turned. Then came The Fiend. Red lights, nonsense booking, a match that almost killed Seth's career. He lost the title, lost the crowd, lost the faith. He could have been the guy then, should have been. Roman was gone, Cena was out, the path was clear, but it all turned to dust, so he let go and started over. He became the Monday Night Messiah, preaching in designer suits, delivering sermons with steel chairs, blinding Ray, manipulating Murphy, wrestling like a tyrant, not to win, but to survive. Because deep down, Seth Rollins knew, greatness doesn't matter when you're not the one they want. And then, silence. The world shut down. No fans, no chants, no pyro, just a company gasping for life. And Seth stayed. Others vanished, took sabbaticals, hid behind part-time deals. Seth stood in the void, cut promos to empty chairs, bled in front of dead air. WWE never passed him the torch, but in its darkest hour, he was the light. Then came fatherhood, and with it, a rebirth. Not a messiah, a visionary. He returned stranger, brighter, louder. His laugh danced on the edge of madness. His suits screamed chaos. His energy, untamable. And the crowd didn't just accept it. They sang with him. He became transcendent, a spectacle, a symphony, a rebellion in technicolor. And still, he wasn't the face. Because Roman had the crown. The same crown Seth once fought to legitimize. Now sitting on Roman's waist like it had always belonged. But here's the thing, Roman never beat Seth. Money in the Bank 2016, Seth pinned him clean. WrestleMania 31, Seth cashed in and walked out champion. Royal Rumble 2022, Seth outplayed him. Roman snapped, DQ. In the biggest moments, Seth won the battles. But Roman got the story, because Roman was the chosen one. And Seth, he was the architect, building the empire, never allowed to rule it.
What do you want from me? I don't take nights off. I fight through injuries every single time, and I get in that ring. I lay it all on the line.
Then came Cody, the prodigal son, the polished return, the nightmare made flesh. He left, built his name outside, founded a revolution, brought real competition. AEW was his rebellion. But to WWE fans, he was still just Dusty's kid, a mid-carder with a big entrance, until Seth Rollins made him a superstar. 3 matches, 3 classics, and 1 legendary Hell in a Cell, with a torn pec and Seth carrying him through it. Seth fought a ghost, fought for the company, fought through pain and pride and history, and lost 3 straight times. Because that's what Seth Rollins does. He doesn't bury talent, he builds it, even when it breaks him. Then WWE unveiled a second world title, a belt born from Roman's absence, a compromise wrapped in gold, a crown that, no matter who wore it, would always be seen as lesser. But Seth Rollins didn't carry it like it was second best. He carried it like it mattered. He didn't call it a consolation prize. He called it a canvas. While Roman worked limited dates, paraded around as a myth, Seth fought everywhere. Raw, NXT, pay-per-views, house shows, no sabbaticals, no part-time perks. He gave the roster something to chase, a championship that wasn't locked behind politics and part-time appearances. He made that belt feel like it meant something, not because the company told us it did, because he made it so. Then came WrestleMania 40, maybe the greatest of the modern era, a show draped in legends. Roman, Rock, Cena, Taker, mythology in motion, and still, it'll be remembered for one man. Not just Cody finishing the story, but Seth freaking Rollins carrying the story. He walked into Philadelphia with a broken body, passed the torch to Drew, then laced his boots again, fought Cody's war beside him, a war he'd already bled for. And on night 2, when Roman was about to slam the door on destiny, Seth stepped in, stood in the middle, took the chair to the spine. One last shield, one last stand. He completed a redemption arc Cody's own father never got to finish, a mentor's sacrifice, a friend's final offering. The moment wasn't dressed in gold, it was dressed in pain. It was Seth bleeding for a dream that wasn't even his, because that's who he is. He wasn't the main event, but he was the reason the main event mattered. Limping, screaming, clutching the ropes like they were the last thing holding him together. He fought like it was his last night on Earth. He was the MVP of WrestleMania weekend. And what did he get in return? He lost the title, lost the strength to keep going, his body broke, surgery looming, and he watched them crown the man who walked back in just a few years ago. When Seth Rollins lost everything, the only thing that survived was hatred. Not bitterness, not resentment. Hatred, raw, festering, and aimed directly at the men the world put on pedestals for their last names while he bled for every second of spotlight they were handed. Eventually, that hatred found its home in the man who caused him more suffering than anyone else.
And my heart full of hate and rage, and I will burn you to the ground!
When Seth first entered WWE, he was welcomed by the man he once idolized, CM Punk. Then, in the middle of a historic WWE Championship reign, Punk stood at the top while Seth fought for scraps in NXT. But Punk saw something. He pitched the Shield and handpicked Seth and Dean to bring it to life. And when the Shield exploded onto the main roster, Punk stepped aside, not wanting to make it about him. He let them rise on their own terms. Seth never forgot that. There was gratitude, there was a bond, something close to a mentor and a mentee. But then Punk walked away. He didn't just quit the company, he tried to burn it down, told everyone he trusted to leave with him. And when Seth stayed, Punk cut him off. Seth reached out, calls, texts, silence. The fans called Punk a martyr, a prophet. They chanted his name in arenas he hadn't stepped into in years. But Seth saw something else. He saw a coward, a man who turned his back on the place that fed them, the company that Seth bled for when no one else would. While Punk vanished, Seth stayed through the soulless PG years, through the dog crap storylines, through the silence. He carried the weight of a company that barely had a heart left to carry. And then, years later, Punk came back. To cheers, to chants, to goddamn worship. But one man didn't smile. Seth Rollins. That reaction, it wasn't scripted. He didn't even know Punk was returning. The fury in his eyes said it all. Years of resentment, boiling over in one moment. He called Punk a cancer, a fraud, a hypocrite, a parasite to the business. Every word laced with venom, because none of it was a promo. None of it was a work. It was real. They finally met in the ring during WWE's Netflix debut, and Seth lost. It shattered him. At the Royal Rumble, when Punk eliminated him, something inside cracked. Seth snapped. He attacked Punk outside the ring, then turned his rage toward Roman Reigns, stomping his skull into the steel steps. If he couldn't have the mountaintop, he'd drag both of them down from it. At Elimination Chamber, Punk eliminated him again. But Rollins struck back, a blindside stomp that nearly shattered Punk's WrestleMania dreams. Inside the steel cage, Seth tried to end him once and for all, until Roman interrupted, so he waited. Let the fury simmer until WrestleMania. And at WrestleMania, he didn't just defeat Punk and Roman, he humiliated them. He stole what mattered most to both. Punk's best friend in the world, Roman's Wiseman, the only man who hasn't betrayed him yet. Paul Heyman turned on both of them and aligned himself with Seth Rollins. For years, Seth sacrificed everything, his body, his mind, his pride. He delivered classics, night after night, mic work, character work, world titles. But something always felt incomplete. He was always treated like the second best. Not anymore. Seth Rollins became the MVP of back-to-back WrestleManias. He embraced his rage, settled every score, and aligned with the most dangerous mind in the business. Then, on the Raw after Mania, he stood tall. Paul Heyman by his side, Braun Breaker unleashed like a monster behind him, Roman and Punk left in ruins. The message was clear. Seth Rollins isn't chasing greatness anymore. He is greatness. And now, Seth Rollins is cementing himself as the greatest wrestler of the modern generation. And this is not a prediction, it's a spoiler. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like, hit subscribe, and help us reach 10K. See you in the next one.